Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Accost the Field post-game simulcast on Facebook live from West Lafayette. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, 49-220, and I have to read it again just to make sure that it is correct. And it is live from West Lafayette, not Iowa City, as much as it seems like Iowa City, but Ohio State loses to Purdue 49-20. The trap game that we talked about before the game, we've talked about during the week, since they keep hearing that it's a trap game, it won't be a trap game. And I don't really think it was a trap game. They just got beat.
Yeah, I don't think that was a trap game at all. A trap game implies that, a superior team goes in and gets just completely blindsided by an inferior team that gets lucky and has a good day. Right. That was everything you've seen going wrong with Ohio State football all year, that every week you get kind of the happy talk from Urban that, going to get the best chance about being 3-0 is a chance to go 4-0 and get a little better. Well, you were no longer and because none of it got fixed in the previous 7 weeks.
Yeah, the best part about rushing for 78 yards, the opportunity to rush for 79 next week, I guess. They got pushed around, thrown around, run around. Rondale Moore, I think maybe on Wednesday, and even before then, we were talking about just how he was gonna. This was not a good matchup for Ohio State, and we saw that 12 receptions, 170 yards, 2 carries, 24 yards. Did some things in the return game as well, and that last touchdown was one of the most spectacular plays we've seen this year. And they fed him the ball. I was going to say they found mismatches for him, but everybody is a mismatch for him. Ohio State was depleted defensively, but they kept giving him the ball, and he kept making plays. And it's a recruiting miss on Ohio State's part, but I think they could have had him if they wanted him hard enough. But he would be wasting away behind KJ Hill and Paris Campbell. I think he's in the perfect place. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some alternate universe somewhere where Jalen Gill is playing for Purdue right now, and Rondale Moore is sitting on the bench about to take a red shirt at Ohio State. And, there are some serious questions about if you think your talent is so much better than Purdue's talent that a guy who can look like a freshman All-American at Purdue would be, wasting away on the bench at Ohio State. If your talent is that much better, or you think your talent is that much better, how on earth does that happen?
Tom, you're asking a bunch of questions where they're, we just got out of a post game with Urban Meyer where he was asked a bunch of questions, and pretty much every answer was, I didn't see this coming, or, we've got time, we've got a bye week to get it fixed, we've got this, we've got that, the season's not lost. And truly, the season is not lost, but we have seen no fixes for the run. The running game, they are completely clueless on how to fix the running game. And, over the bye week, you can change the personnel. You can't change the coaches. And if the coaches are clueless, you need new coaches. I mean, it's the running game. It's football. He says it's very hard to run. But we see teams run every week, and they don't necessarily need a running quarterback. So at some point, last year, Iowa, they said some things changed. I don't know that anything really changed other than, they recalibrated, as Terry McLaurin said, last year, and you'll recalibrate after this game. But I don't foresee much changing, or I don't know that enough can change, because how can you go from a running game that is this bad to a running game that is decent?
I mean, at this point, it has to involve personnel changes up front, which... I tweeted this at some point kind of towards the end of the game. If you're looking for a bright spot as an Ohio State fan to this game, the bright spot is that Urban Meyer is extremely stubborn and won't change anything, and gives you the best chance thing about being fill in the blank and O is the chance to go fill in the blank +1 and O, and doesn't change anything, and has to wait until he absolutely gets his face kicked in to make a change like that. And you saw changes after the Clemson game. Major changes on the offensive staff. and then that paid off for a while. And then you saw some changes. I mean, there was a dramatic shift with that team in the weeks after the Iowa game. There was a dramatic shift with the 2015 team after the Michigan State game. Yeah. Well, he just got his face kicked in again. And, you know, there's one conversation about that, which is Nick Saban never seems to get his face kicked in. So, I mean, there's one conversation there. But if you want to take the if you want to have the positive conversation, it's maybe this is what it takes to get the personnel / scheme changes that are necessary.
I mean, YouTube has a bunch of tutorials, or you can watch other games and see how they, you know, like Dwayne Haskins said they pulled that 4th down pass to KJ Hill, the 4th and 2, and they saw it in the NFL. They thought they'd try it. So obviously, you're watching other teams. Find some teams that can run the ball, but it still comes down to a lot of what Kevin Wilson said and Greg Cedraro said. The offensive line needs to block, and Dwayne Haskins said it after the game. They need to open up bigger holes, and Terry McLaurin said something similar. You know, he was asked, you know, what's the problem with the running game? Is it the running backs? Is it the offensive line? And he's like, well, it's not really the offensive line or the running backs. It's just the offensive line needs to block better, and the running backs need to make people miss more. Which, you know, I mean, that's the running game in a nutshell. But if Brandon Bowen comes back and you put him at left guard, does that? I don't think that makes them from a 76 yards against Purdue. Does that make them 152 yards? You know, against Nebraska, which is still really poor. And I don't see this team becoming a running team, or not even a running team, but a team that can run this year. And I can't believe that's a thing. I mean, Dwayne Haskins set a record tonight. Great job. It doesn't passing records and like single game things, you know, there's a reason like the top, you know, before Dwayne Haskins this year, the reason the top 2 or the top 1 was a loss is because you're throwing because you can't run the ball. Now Dwayne Haskins owns the top spot because they couldn't run the ball. And all they could do is throw it. And, you know, we've talked about it, you know, it's going to eventually come back to bite you. It's going to get you. And Urban Meyer said it this past week, and it bit him hard tonight. And this won't be the last loss.
No.
If they cannot run the ball, there are going to be maybe more than just the Michigan loss.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless the Big Ten decides to cancel the Michigan game this year. This was about as thorough a humiliation of Urban Meyer as I can possibly imagine. Because you look at the stuff that Purdue was doing, and it's all the stuff that Urban Meyer kind of poo-poos. And it's, you know, Purdue, a normally shotgun team, gets under center, sneaks it for a first down, and it's, you know, it was like, well, I mean, we'll take that under advisement. Very sarcastic, you know.
Duly noted.
Poo-poo. We're 6-0 or whatever it was at that point, and you know, kind of poo-pooing questions about, you know, can you, you know, are you confident in you know, 3rd and short kind of yardage, and are you worried about how the team looks in that kind of situation, and you know, everything came back to bite them tonight. It was just go down the list of things that people on Twitter or in comment sections or on our message board have been screaming about all year, and it was just like, okay, couldn't run the ball in short yardage, couldn't tackle, gave up big plays, just absolutely inane penalties, and it was this building crescendo in the fourth quarter, what was going to be the best microcosm of this game, and it was the Rondale Moore play where he went for the touchdown, where Isaiah Pryor tried to throw him down to the ground, and Moore just spun out of the tackle and just ran for a touchdown. And then there was Johnny Dixon returning a kickoff to the 6-inch line. That's a fifth-year senior. What on earth are you doing? Well, and then right at the end of the game, they get the ball. They're at the 25-yard line or something, and then just okay, and now we're done. We proved our point. We got Dwayne Haskins the record. So I think what happened was they didn't want to go 0 for 6 in the red zone on touchdowns. They went 2 for 5 with 2 field goals. So
0 for 5 in terms of touchdowns. They probably didn't want to go 0 for 6. That would be embarrassing. But yeah, this is worse than the Iowa game because at least back then you didn't really know that was possible. Mm-hmm. You know it's possible now. You knew to look out for it. And, Jordan Fuller and Terry McLaurin both said you don't ever go into a game expecting a loss. But they should be expecting more, I guess, from the opponent and expect more from themselves. Because this was a team that, I think even Terry McLaurin said, there's a bunch of mistakes, or maybe Dwayne Haskins said, but they're aggressive mistakes. Mm-hmm. Aggressive is stupidity at times. When you've got Draymond Jones, you stop on a 3rd and long, and you get a roughing the passer penalty. Mm-hmm. You stop on a punt, and you get a roughing penalty. They had a running into the kicker earlier in the game that could have been a roughing.
Yeah, maybe, arguably should have been a roughing. Yeah.
So it's just very. How many penalties did they finish with?
I'm looking right now. 10 penalties for 86 yards, and I got to tell you, it seemed like more than that.
There was 9 or 10 in the first half alone.
Yeah,
I guess they started declining some in the second half out of sportsmanship and fairness.
Yeah,
but. I guess it keeps going back, for me, it goes back to coaching, where they don't have any answers for the play. They can't get better play. The players are completely undisciplined in terms of the penalties. And Malik Harrison missing tackles. Mm-hmm. That's discipline as well. So I don't know what the coaches are doing, and I don't know that a bye week is going to help them.
Well, there were questions about that, and I think might have been Bill Landis. Someone asked Urban about, is this stuff you can get fixed in 2 weeks? Are these issues you can get fixed? And it was just kind of, we can, we'll get it figured out. But there's no specifics. There's no, I don't think we saw anything on that field tonight that was like a shock. Like, I can't believe the Ohio State defense gave up so many big plays. I can't believe the Ohio State offense couldn't run the ball. I can't believe Ohio State was committing stupid penalties. Like, it was all stuff that you've seen for 2 months that either it's just been kind of, it's fine. Mm-hmm. He just kind of gets hand-waved, which I can't imagine that's possibly what it is. But the only other explanation is they can't fix it. They don't know how to fix it, or they just decided we're not going to worry about it right now. We'll deal with it later.
Right.
Well, later has come. You got to deal with it now.
The entire season is almost like they're paying off credit cards with credit cards. Mm-hmm. And they're just trying to get through it until they can get a boost somewhere. And there's no boost. There's no pay raise. I mean, you're looking at these numbers, and even like the long run for J.K. Dobbins, he had 11 rushes for 24 yards. His long carry is 6 yards. Mm-hmm. Last year he averaged over 6 yards a carry. Yeah. And when he gets 6 yards now, you're like, wow, that was a pretty good run.
Yeah.
What we're seeing, the running game is. We could just go on and on. I don't want to harp on it. It's the worst I've ever seen at Ohio State, and I believe it is probably the worst in school history. And it's not. And if you take away like the first 2 games against Oregon State and Rutgers, which shouldn't count in terms of this running game, are they even 120 yards a game?
They had 3 yards per carry this week, 2.9 yards per carry against Minnesota last week, and those are not like you would look at that, if I told you before the year Ohio State rushed for 3 yards per carry against a defense, you'd say, must have been Alabama in the playoff. Right. This is Purdue, which was 92nd, I think, in the country in defense coming into this game. And just...
But they stacked the box, Tom.
I mean, and that's the thing. You've kind of heard the same thing. He didn't say stack the box tonight, which is, refreshing in a way, I guess. It's been the same answers all year, and it's been the same non-answers all year, which...
It's been the same problems all year.
Yeah, and there's no indication there's been absolutely no indication that any of it is in the process of getting fixed or getting better. And
even when they were running the ball semi-well earlier in the season, we were still like, where are the big hits? Mike Weber had one. J.K. still only one carry over 20 yards of the season. Mm-hmm. And the receivers did not block well tonight either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a collective failure all around. And Dwayne Haskins, God bless him, 49 completions, 73 attempts, 1 pick six, 470 yards, school record, only 2 touchdowns, sacked once, but he was pressured here and there with some blitzes. And it's almost like not fair to blitz the Ohio State offensive line. That should be a rule. You should not be like, look.
You got to call 3 Mississippis.
Right. You should be able to get to the quarterback with 3 or 4 linemen. You don't need to be sending a 5th guy. That's cheating. And we should also talk about the wind. It was significant in the first half. It died down. It wasn't that big of a deal when you're combining for 848 yards passing. So I guess it couldn't have been too bad, or maybe it was too windy for Ohio State to run. Perhaps it was just easier to throw. It's so funny that there 546 yards of total offense, but this offense is trash right now.
Yeah, it is remarkable. I was obviously not old enough to remember the Art Schlichter 1981 Florida State game. And it always struck me as bizarre that you could throw for so many yards, 458 yards, which is the Ohio State record until tonight. Throw for 458 yards and somehow lose a game. Like, how is that possible? And then you just saw it down there tonight. It was throw, move the ball down to the 20, and then as soon as you hit the 20, okay, just death. Yeah. Nothing happens. Just turn it over on downs. I mean, throwing on 4th and goal, you brought it up earlier, the little tunnel screen to KJ Hill on 4th and goal from the 2. You've got the ball on the 2-yard line, and you throw the ball to the 3-yard line, where if he dropped it, he didn't catch it. But even if he had caught it, he was going to get tackled at least 2 yards away from the end zone. Like, I mean, you can't run it there. You can't throw it and throw it somewhere where if he catches it and just falls down or slips or something, he falls into the end zone.
QB power.
Right.
It's amazing how the running game just shuts down when there is no quarterback run, and we saw it at Florida in 2010 with John Brantley. Once they lost Tim Tebow and you went to Brantley, it's like this football that Urban Meyer's never heard of, and maybe that's why he's had to back away from it, because it's unfamiliar to him. But the lack of running the ball is absolutely killing him. But they have no answers, and as we were talking about it, on the way up here, like if your coaches don't have answers, you have to get coaches who have answers.
Right. I mean, I tweeted this out around halftime today. Greg Schiano and Alex Grinch combined are making almost as much as all of Purdue's assistant coaches. And it's not like Purdue's assistant coaches are working with dramatically better talent. Ohio State's coaches are, kind of objectively working with better talent and just getting absolutely clowned like that. I mean, just getting dunked on for 60 minutes. And it was, the defense was probably not the worst of the sides of the ball tonight, which is staggering in its own way. But, talking about the red zone struggles, how many times have we talked about, maybe they need to look at Tate Martell? It's not really working in the red zone right now. Maybe try Tate Martell. If you have to run it, put in the quarterback who's a better runner and just see. And they haven't tried him. With Tate Martell,
Wildcat.
Tate Martell has not. Yeah, we've talked about this on the podcast for weeks. Try Tate Martell. Put Mike Weber back there. Put J.K. Dobbins back there. Just try something different to give it a different look, because what you're doing right now is not working, and you can keep banging your head on that wall as much as you want, but you keep kicking field goals. You keep going, falling short on 4th down.
Do you remember Flanders having flashbacks of when he was a child, and he was a really bad child, and his beatnik parents never corrected him or did anything for him, and so they took him to like a child psychologist, and his dad was like, we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. That's the coaching staff here at Ohio State.
And do you remember what actually solved that problem?
They spanked him?
Yes, but it was the University of Minnesota Spankalogical Protocol, which, that was a week ago. So Ohio State got the Purdue University Spankalogical Protocol tonight. Yes. I have a feeling that's going to be the title of the episode on the podcast, the Purdue University Spankalogical Protocol. We have 1 trillion questions from people. Do you want to answer questions for a little bit? Or
yes, let's do that, and I can...
All right, so let's just work backwards. Matt says Tate Martell has only played in 4 games. He's not redshirting again, is he? He's got a smiley face. I'm guessing not. I don't know.
We're going for the double red shirt, man.
Think about how red that shirt would be. Ryan Smith says he did it with Leak and Tebow in Florida. He doesn't see why he doesn't even attempt that approach.
They're different players, but you could still do something. Like, it doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be as uniform as it was before. You've got. different components. And the way, like he said, Tate Martell, if he's one of the top playmakers, he'll play. And early in the season, before the season, he's one of our top playmakers. We have to get him on the field. Mm-hmm. Your offense needs running help. If this is a guy who can help, then you know what? Dwayne Haskins can throw, maybe just let him throw 55 times instead of 73 and let, Tate Martell. And I know they're so afraid to put Tate Martell out in a situation where all of these games have been unnecessarily close. Mm-hmm. I don't think Jeff Brom would have a problem with it. Yeah. And it's totally different worlds to compare the two, because Jeff Brom is a guy who, I think was like Urban Meyer used to be before he got comfortable as one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in college football, whereas Jeff Brom is still aspiring to be there. And we knew he was going to pull out every stop. We knew there were going to be trick plays, and you could expect a fake field goal or a fake punt. Mm-hmm. And we weren't disappointed. The crowd out here was not disappointed. The only people disappointed are in scarlet and gray.
Yeah, and Purdue runs that fake field goal right before the half. Very easily could have kicked it. The smart quote-unquote statistical play is kick the field goal, go up by a touchdown, runs that fake field goal, ends up scoring a touchdown. Urban Meyer, second half, they're down 21-6 in that fourth quarter. I think late in the third, early in the fourth quarter. 4th and 1 in his own end, when it's like you've got to make a play. You can't punt and rely on this defense again, and he punts and relies on the defense again. So let's see. Going through, Matt says no Damon Arnett. That was not. Yeah, that was not unexpected, and that certainly was not the only problem by any means. And I don't know how much he makes it better, but I don't know how much better he makes it.
Yeah, is he going to keep them from quitting at the end, or is he going to help Isaiah Pryor make a tackle at the end? Because the offense, the passing game in that fourth quarter was bouncing back, but they were always down like 3 scores, and they would cut it to 2, and it's like you can't survive that way, and the defense was just no help.
Yeah. Ryan says Shiano, Grinch, Davis, and Stud have got to go. If I failed as consistently as they have at their jobs, I wouldn't have a job anymore, whether it's during the bye or at the end of the season. Got to go. You're not going to see personnel changes in the coaching staff during the bye week. That's just, realistically, that's just not going to happen.
We would have to see the wedding list.
That was the most me comment you've ever made. I don't know. Maybe there's a flower girl who can coach linebackers. Who's to say? Mike says no way they make the playoff losing by 29 points.
That's we should talk about that, because that is true, because that's what kept them out for the most part. The Iowa loss, like down here, and I pointing down at the field. If they were able to keep it within 14 or whatever, or make it cosmetically better, but Purdue wouldn't allow it. And 49-20, that's all the committee is going to see. Even if Ohio State goes 12-1, I think they should. It just depends. They're just not going to get the benefit of the doubt like they would have if they didn't get blown out by a team that is now 4-3.
Well, and if they come out and really are thoroughly kicking the tar out of people from now on.
59-0.
Yeah, well, if you thump, you thump Michigan State, you thump Nebraska, you thump Maryland. You probably don't need to even thump Michigan, but you need to beat Michigan by 10 points or something like that, and then you need to go into the Big Ten championship game and beat the brakes off of Wisconsin or Iowa, whoever that ends up being.
You need to show that this was a fluke, but also that you are better now than you were tonight.
Right. Yeah, you have to demonstrably show that the team that you saw on October 20th was not the team that you have going into the playoff.
My suggestion, Google, it's an internet website, how to run the ball. Mm-hmm. You might have to send away for a VHS tape with Fred McGriff.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there like a Tom Amansky video on running the ball? Matt says, yes, a running quarterback opens things up as the defense needs to defend a running quarterback. You would certainly think that a passing quarterback who's throwing it over the top would, how many, I feel like we've had this conversation every week, force the safeties to back up, force the linebackers to back up, open up. So you really just, you have all these guys back, and you have a running back who can get 4 yards downfield and make one guy miss and go, and it just hasn't happened.
Remember the olden days when Cardale Jones came in for the 3 games, and everybody said Ezekiel Elliott was able to run because Ohio State was finally had a passing quarterback, a downfield threat. Mm-hmm. But, now what? But Purdue ran for 161 yards. David Blau is not a runner.
No.
They were able to run the ball somehow. I don't know. We'll have to review the tape, ask some NASA people. NASA, how did this happen? How do you do this? Can this be replicated in a laboratory environment?
Also, can we get some Tang? Brad, oh man, things are getting grim. Brad says they'll move some deck chairs around while the ship is taking on water. Mike says
that's what they've been doing.
Yeah,
right?
Mike says too stubborn. That's his biggest flaw. I mean, that's Urban doesn't like to change things until he absolutely has to, and if you're winning, you don't absolutely have to. When you get dunked on by Purdue for 60 minutes like you did, now you have to.
Talking about moving the deck chairs, and I've used the Titanic analogy before, but it's almost like they see the iceberg and they're like, what we should do is to avoid the iceberg, let's move these chairs around.
Yeah.
And then by moving the chairs, that may shift the weight of the boat, and then we'll be fine.
The best thing about driving a ship?
Tom.
Chance to go iceberg and no.
Icebergs are undefeated.
Icebergs are undefeated. Matthew says Urban has lost his team to his assistant coaches. The offensive line is soft. I mean, the offensive line is not blowing people off the ball like you would expect an Ohio State offensive line to. And, I don't know if that's a mentality. I mean, there's been all sorts of talk about whether that's a result of them passing and not being a running team anymore. I mean, that's, if Earl Bruce was here, that's 100% what he would say. I don't know if I put too much stock in that. It may just be a personnel thing where they just, Greg Studwara was a perfectly good offensive line coach last year with different players, and now all of a sudden he has not forgotten how to coach the offensive line, I don't think.
Here's a question. This is bizarre to me. Okay, so Ohio State rushes for 78 yards? 76 yards, okay? Purdue has 2 tackles in the backfield. One is a sack. So it's almost, you would think, like, if you've been dominated this much in the running game, Purdue's going to have a bunch of tackles in the backfield. They didn't. They had one that was not a sack. So are they just waiting right at the line of scrimmage, and they're not getting pushed very far, and then they know, like, we can just clean it up? Linebackers, Marcus Bailey, middle linebacker, 15 tackles. Is Kenneth Major, is he a linebacker? We've done some really good research on this. But, the top 2 tacklers, 15 and 12. Then you've got a 9 and 8 and 8. So I don't understand how there aren't any plays in the backfield, and yet the longest rush you have is like 6 yards. And it's just like it's a game of Red Rover where Purdue just stays like 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and then send J.K. Dobbins on over 3 yards, boom, you're down.
I think that might honestly be a function of Purdue not having to blitz a ton. I mean, there were a couple times you saw Purdue blitz. I mean, there was an A-gap blitz where a linebacker just came clean up the middle, and it was like, oh no, that's not good. But you didn't see a ton of run blitzes because they didn't have to run blitz, which that should be maybe one of the most troubling things, is that not only did Purdue completely stonewall this Ohio State defense running game, they didn't have to do a ton of exotic run blitzes, bring a ton, put 9 guys in the box to stop the running game. They just stopped the running game.
Like, if Ohio State and Michigan played next week, the Ohio State run total, I would put it maybe like 36 and a half rushing yards, not rushing attempts. They will not be able to run against Michigan unless something changes, and something has to change. But there's no way this team can run the ball against Michigan. No. And they're not going to. I mean, Michigan State's run defense is pretty stout as well. Michigan ran on them, but let's not pretend that Ohio State can run the ball like Michigan or has an offensive line like Michigan's.
If only Ohio State could get Michigan's offensive line coach. Wonder what his background is. If you're listening to the podcast, you didn't see Gerd just roll his eyes. But I saw it. And if you're watching on Facebook, you saw it. Mike says, how about the defense? What happened to our linebackers? I mean, I don't know that anything happened to them. I think it's the same thing that has happened to them all season.
Well, Malik Harrison led the team. He had double-digit tackles, but he missed some. So I think they were further off the line than in the past, and they were there to make some plays. Baron Browning had some flashes in the first half.
Yeah.
Tuff Borland, I don't ever recall hardly ever seeing him. But Malik Harrison was all over the football. He just didn't bring the football down as much as he should have. So I think the linebackers played a little bit better, but they're still like complete voids when DJ Knox is running free, and so it's a complete failure on all levels.
Yeah, I mean the linebackers were better, but they were still bad.
Yeah,
but I mean that bad is an improvement in some ways for the linebackers.
Which is, it's the state of affairs at Ohio State football right
Brad
now.
says Michael Jordan needs to be a guard, and I mean it worked in the NFL, in the NBA, so why not? And someone else needs to play center. Time to see what the other offensive lineman can do. Is like Wyatt Davis. I mean, if you do that, you're probably putting Brady Taylor at center. Brady Taylor was not healthy yet this week, so we don't know. He had like an arthroscopic knee procedure a few weeks ago. He should be back, I'm guessing, for the Nebraska game. So you could do that. You could put Brandon Bowen at guard. You could put Wyatt Davis at guard. You have some options there, but I don't know if just swapping out, say, Malcolm Pridgeon at left guard, I don't know if that just magically fixes everything. Maybe it makes things better, or if you're looking towards next year, having like a Wyatt Davis at guard where he's going to be here for another year or two, and Pridgeon's this is his last year. Maybe that's more of a long-term play. But I mean, maybe it's better, but I don't know if that fixes it.
I feel like at center right now, the apex of the offense sets the tone. You almost need a guy who like willingly goes into biker bars and just punches people. You just need a badass guy who is just not going to take crap from anybody. And it seems like this offensive line is okay taking crap, and they don't set the tone. And when Terry McLaurin in the postgame, and one of us should write about this, said the offensive line is the heartbeat of the team, or maybe the heartbeat of the offense, the heartbeat of something, and the heartbeat, it's a flat line right now, because if that's the heartbeat of the offense, I mean, heart transplant, man. Yeah. And that's usually the center.
Yeah. Mike says the loss of Coach Combs was the biggest loss we had in the offseason. I mean, the corners, I don't think the cornerbacks are among the 5 biggest issues right now.
I thought they were fine tonight.
They were fine. They weren't great, but they were fine. And they were fine even without Damon Arnett. That was a potential major issue, that you're playing with Damon Arnett and you basically have no rotational depth. And the question was, how are they going to hold up? They seemed like they held up fine, and we saw Jeff Okudah walking out of postgame. He was injured kind of late in the game, and that was another thing that we kind of went, oh no, that would not be good if they lost him. And
Sheffield went down.
Sheffield went down at one point. He was back in the game. Okudah, we saw walking out. He seemed like he was walking fine. I mean, we're not medical professionals.
You wonder, like, they opened up in the nickel, and that was really the only 5 they had. Amir Reep was the dime. And you wondered how long, like, would they tire out? And then you look at the box score, and there's 28 points in the fourth quarter, where 21 of those are offense, and there's a pick 6 in there. But the defense did not respond well. And you wondered, were some of those mistakes because they were tired? Were some of the penalties because they were tired?
I mean, they defended. Purdue ran 29 plays on the ground and 43 through the air. So you're defending 72 plays. So that's not
normal.
I mean, that's about normal. Ohio State ran 73 passes and 25 rushes. So they ran 90. Ohio State ran 98 offensive plays. So I mean, if anyone's defense should have looked tired at the end of the game, it's Purdue, and Purdue looked just fine. So
you got some more questions?
Mike says, looks like Florida and Urban's last few years there. We are getting dark.
Well. Last few, he had 2 national championships technically in his last few.
Yes,
or at least one. 09, yeah.
Last year, that 2010 season, it didn't look.
No, it was bad.
Yeah, it didn't look great. Chad says, has Urban Meyer lost his elite drive to win?
Next question, Tom. I mean, he may still have the drive, but he might not know the directions. Like, he's still out there driving. But, you're over there. You need to be over there.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I've always gone this way and won. It's like, well, that's fine, but now the winning is over here. Now the elite winning is over here. Like Nick Saban was pro-style offense. He has adapted to a spread offense with pro-style, still doing under the center as well. He has adapted. Urban Meyer is adapting to a Ryan Day's passing offense, but it's not meshing, or it's if you can't run the ball, you need to do something. You need to figure out scrap your offense until you can run the ball again. Because 470 yards is nice, but it doesn't win a championship.
Right.
It doesn't win a Big Ten championship. And if that's not what you're playing for, then I guess you have lost your elite will to win.
Ryan says it's why you don't hire friends. Schiano is a bad hire, and Urban is too blinded by loyalty to see it. I don't know that Schiano's a bad hire, but if right now Rutgers called up and said, "Hey, we'll trade you Chris Ash for Greg Schiano," I mean, who says no to that?
No, nobody, and maybe not even Greg Schiano.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there has been. I think Greg Schiano has probably been a little stubborn schematically this year, where we are a press man team. We play press man. We are a press man team outside. And you may not have the personnel to do that right now, and you may have to get. It's great that that's your identity, but right now your identity is team that just gave up 49 points to Purdue.
You should know your personnel right now. You should know what best situations to put them in, what they can do and what they can't. And they are getting better, perhaps. Who knows? It doesn't look like it, but they'll tell you they are. And Bill Davis said this past week that they're really close to turning a corner. I think they missed the exit, and now they're going to have to double back and do a UE maybe, or get off on one exit and then come back around.
Honestly, the most troubling thing I heard during the post-game interviews was people saying, we had a good week of practice.
Yeah.
If that's what that team looks like after a good week of practice, I mean, that's... were they practicing football? I mean...
Urban.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah. Was this football you were practicing?
Yeah. American football? We saw the Saskatchewan Roughriders up in the press box scouting the game, so maybe. Mike says this offense is urbane. We need, mundane. We need a young, open-minded coordinator, a Lincoln Riley type who can bring a fresh spread offense in. I mean, that's what Ryan Day is. Yeah, I mean that's
what he is.
You have that. That is Ryan Day.
You just need an offensive line to block.
Yeah, it's. Emerson says, "Is Urban going to let a young coordinator actually run the offense?" I mean,
this is not Urban Meyer throwing 73 times.
Yeah, this is not the Urban Meyer offense.
People have criticized Urban Meyer that things have changed since he came back. I think if Urban Meyer is running this offense, you're getting more running game out of it. Somehow, some way. But this is an Urban Meyer throwing the ball 26 times in the first half. I mean, this is what they're forced to do. But I don't put this offense on Urban Meyer at all. Other than the fact that he's the guy in charge and he's not getting his guys to fix the problems.
Yep. Ryan says it's the line. The run blocking is atrocious. Prince doesn't even look like he wants to be out there, and I don't know that that's. I mean, he wants to be out there, and one thing we did learn in postgame was, last year after the Iowa game. It came out a few weeks later, the video of Billy Price getting up in front of the locker room after the Iowa game and yelling at the team that all their goals were still in front of them and they still could achieve everything they wanted to achieve. This year, that was Isaiah Prince who got up and gave that. He didn't want to. Terry McLaurin didn't want to talk about what the content of that speech. You may see it in 3 or 4 weeks in a video that Ohio State tweets out before the Michigan game or a Big Ten championship game or whatever, but. We don't know, so we don't know exactly what he said, but it was Isaiah Prince. So Isaiah Prince is a leader on this team, and
he's had a couple rough weeks though.
He has had a couple rough weeks on the field, yeah, for sure. Let's see, no leadership. Jason says no leadership, and the coaching is not there. I mean, the coaching. There are real serious questions about the coaching right now. I don't think that's unfair at all. John says the execution of the blocking schemes and not being gap sound. Defense is the same way. And you can't rely on Haskins throwing it 79 times. I mean, you certainly don't want to rely on Haskins throwing it 79 times.
73 times
or 73
20
times.
points out of it.
Yeah. Now, if we want to talk about positives, we talked about a couple positives earlier about this being the kind of beating that tends to kick Urban Meyer's butt into gear on changes that need to be made. Here's one more positive. Art Schleister's name is now out of the Ohio State record book in 2 more places. Yeah. So... he is no longer the single game passing attempts and no longer the single game yardage. So, I mean, if you want to look at it was worth the trip. Anytime you can erase Art Schleister from the record book a couple times, that's worth it. Thomas says, never in my lifetime seen a really important player leave the program like Bosa. I can't help but see this game as a fallout of the whole sad decline of the team spirit that no one wants to say is the crass commercialization that Bosa's dollars at stake just passed over all as part of the game. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, you can say that that's a some sort of a side,
right? I think
something related to it, but I don't
that big of a.
I don't think anything Nick Bosa did or didn't do this week had any impact on, because other than getting hurt, I don't know.
Right.
He
Nick wasn't going to help the running game.
Yeah, Nick Bosa, as soon as he got hurt at TCU, and nothing that happened after that had any impact on tonight. I don't think it's. I mean, you can say it's a, some kind of a microcosm of something.
His absence has an impact, but choices since then.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we're pretty much rolling out of questions. Yeah. Well, Gary says running QB isn't the answer. Stop zone blocking, instead block pro style and use two backs. I mean, I don't know that you're going to. I mean, maybe you see two backs. That would be a pretty dramatic change mid-season.
Let's also ask maybe what they need is unicorns.
I mean, we did call it the unicorn formation when you had both of them on the field. So basically, Brad says Jordan at center weakens two positions. When does he move back to guard? I mean, we've talked about it. Maybe, I don't know, when Brady Taylor or Josh Myers is viewed as one of the 5 best offensive linemen. Mike says, what are some of the upcoming games you see Ohio State losing? I mean,
this team isn't beating Michigan right now.
No.
And you're looking at something like 24, 31-10, something like a significant beatdown, because for one, Michigan has big play capability, and for two, Ohio State cannot run the ball, and if Dwayne Haskins is just standing back there and throwing, they're going to light him up.
Well, and Michigan's got a pretty good pass defense. I mean, you don't want to throw on those Michigan. You don't want to. You're not going to make your living throwing on those Michigan corners.
We're about done out of questions.
We're running out, and I mean, I don't know. That's not quite a fair. Wow, we are. Yeah, that's quite a podcast. All right, so I think we've kind of touched on most of the general themes of the evening, all of which were very good. Hope you guys have all enjoyed a wonderful.
Didn't you say last week you needed to be more positive?
I did say that, and
you failed miserably.
Well, I mean, I can only work with the source material I'm given.
Like I always say, just blame the players. So I guess that'll do it for us. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Going to be an interesting bye week with no Urban Meyer Monday. We'll get some maybe assistance on Wednesday after the next podcast. Or, it's going to be an interesting week where, we'll have another hour or so to rehash and try to figure out some more things about this game. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of questions as well. So thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a safe drive back home.